I will be showing you how to set up file transfer using the .NET SDK. For this tutorial, you will first need to set up the Steam Sister example project. To get started, I'll download the .NET SDK from the PTC support portal. Now I'll extract the file and save it someplace easy to find. Next, we'll open up Visual Studio and create a new project. Be sure to select Console Application Project and give it a name. Now that we'll have a new project, we'll first delete the program.cs file that was automatically created. Next, we'll add references to the ThingWorx.net common.dll and new and soft.json files. Both of these are provided with the SDK. Our path will be in the desktop, my .NET SDK folder, and the SDK folder within that. Now we're going to copy the Steam Sensor client.cs and steamthing.cs files into the project. Now in the example folder, you'll find the two files. Add this to the project. If you're connecting over HTTPS and using a self-signed certificate, the client configurator must be set to allow self-signed certificates. Below the lines, add config.allow self-signed certificates equals true and config.disable cert validation equals true. Next, we'll set the target framework of the project to 3.5 or later. Right now we're using 4. And then we'll have to configure the command line parameters. This will be setting the address of the ThingWorx server, the application key to authenticate, and the timeout. Save the project and start it. If you see this, we forgot to add the core SDK to the project. This is the twapi.dll file. We'll go to our .NET SDK and grab the TW folder. We'll copy this and paste it into our project within the debug folder. Now we'll go ahead and save this and try to run it again. Looks like this time it was successful, and we'll go to ThingWorx. Then we go to monitoring, remote things, you'll see our Steam sensors as two unbound things. To bind them to a remote thing within ThingWorx, we'll create a new thing, name it Steam Sensor 1. You give it a thing template of remote thing with file transfer. Save it. See if it's connected. Oh, it still isn't because we forgot to add the identifier. Browse and select SN001. Save it. Go back to properties and check if it's connected. And now your Steam Sensor remote thing is successfully connected. To begin setting up file transfer, we'll need to create a file repository. We'll create a new thing and call it My Repository. And give it a thing template of file repository. Now go to Services, select Create Folder. We'll create a folder for this file repository in the root of our repository folder within the ThingWorx storage folder. As you can see here, ThingWorx storage, file repository, our folder is right here. Visual Studio will open up the Steam thing.cs file and import the file transfer class. Now we'll come down to our virtual thing and modify it to extend file transfer virtual thing. Now we'll add a new parameter for the file transfer virtual directories. Now we're going to open the Steam Sensor client. We'll add a new dictionary above the two virtual things. First, we'll set the name of the virtual directory. This can be anything you'd like it to be. And we'll set the location. For our example, we'll set this to the C drive. You'll also need to change the scene thing to add the virtual directories to the parameters of Steam Sensor 1 and Steam Sensor 2. To initiate a file transfer from our edge device, which in this case is my local file system, to the ThingWorx server, we'll need to create a remote service. We'll give it a name and description. Now we'll set the return for the service. In this case, there'll be no return, so we'll set the name to null. In the description, we'll just say no return. And we'll use a base type called nothing. Now within the service script, we'll call the send file service. We'll set the source path, which in this case is set to edge directory. The source file, the file I've created, is called test.txt. The target repository, this we call it my repository. The target path, we'll set it to the root of the repository. And the name of the file after it's been transferred, we'll set this to movefile.txt. Now we'll set the timeout. And asynchronous to true. We'll save this, start up our project. We're going to browse remote services, select the test service you created, save it, and now test it. Now you'll see that the new file has been transferred. If you go to ThingWorx Storage, Repository, go to My Repository, you'll see the moved file.